Joining me now via Skype is public affairs analyst Victor Khai. Victor, good morning. It's good to have you join me right now. Let me ask basically, is Nigeria ready for the easing of restrictions from what we see on a daily basis and with the numbers?
Find easing of restrictions from other jurisdictions, you would have noticed that there's a proper monitoring of data where you see a flattening of the curve. And then when you see a flattening of the curve, because you follow the curve, that's what determines what actions you take. That's a scientific approach, to dealing with this pandemic. Unfortunately, right now, what we see is a spiraling of cases, and the numbers are rising every day. And it's so ironic that in this part, I mean, when we had less than 100, we had very strict restrictions, and now we're over 20,000, and you find that the restrictions are being eased. I understand the pressure on the economy. I understand the need for people to earn a living, But what it simply means is that whatever palliatives have been put in place have not been effective. And so the question government should ask is, so what do we do to make sure that we save lives, while helping people make a living? That is very critical at this time. It's a delicate balance between living and how do I put it now? Making a living and living. And that's the dilemma that government is confronted with.
Yeah, that's the issues of living and livelihoods. But the point there is, is it likely that government is just responding to the pressure from the economic pressure of people wanting to come out, people striving to survive? Is that what government is really responding to? Because when you talk about the issue of responding or looking at the scientific approach, of seeing what the numbers are, looking at the curve with all the practicalities or with all the, the practical sense of it, it doesn't seem practical from that window. But is government just responding to that pressure?
Well, I'll say this to you. If you look at the numbers in the US, for instance, it's so frightening, and when you look at that and look at a similar situation in Nigeria, our greatest resource right now is the human capital, quite frankly. And if you lose it, and you know that we have the highest, one of the highest percentage of youth population in the world, globally, and that is all you have really. If you lose your human capital, every other thing is useless. So, yes, I agree. Government is succumbing to pressure, but that's also because it doesn't appear like there's a clear answer yet. Otherwise, why would you be, we're talking about easing lockdown now, movement and all of that. What has changed? So I am a bit worried. I sympathize with government. I sympathize with the authorities, but I think that we need a clear balance between economy and science, and in this case, medical science and any other science, in order to be able to make sure that we can get out of this. The whole world is looking at Nigeria, as we say with corner eye, the whole world is looking at us. It's like the numbers are not there yet, but they know that it's going to get there. This thing grows geometrically. We don't have enough testing kits, so we don't even know what the real numbers are, and that's scary.
All right. But the point there is the health experts are saying there's nothing to be scared about. There's no need to panic and all of that. I guess, on the other hand, we've seen people so relaxed and so eased that when it comes to the use of a face mask and the concept, the idea of obeying that social distancing, nobody seems to care about it so much anymore because it seems like there's nothing to fear.
I am worried. Now, let me say this to you from a communication point of view. I think there's a big failure in the communication team of the NCDC or whoever, the federal government. We are told that there are 18 local government areas that are responsible for most of the numbers, or at least 60% of the numbers are thereabouts. If 18 out of 774 are giving us these numbers, these huge numbers, isn't it important that people know where those 18 local governments are? I mean, we cannot, for instance, be saying Lagos State is giving these numbers, and we're not telling people where those numbers are. So that people, I mean, in the US, we knew what was happening. We knew that in New York, that was a state that at a point in time was dangerous. And now things are getting better there. We know that states like Texas, for instance, and New Jersey are picking up and a few others. Now, this is information. And what you do with the information is entirely up to you. We need to be able, we will respect the privacy of patients, no doubt, but there are a few who are willing to come out and share their testimonies. If you have people like that, use them. But more importantly, let's know the numbers from those local government areas.
Okay.
So that people know. If there are markets there, you know that you don't need to go to such markets.
All right.
This is very, very important to this fight at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, there's a lot of talk. In fact, social media has been going on. A lot of people commenting regarding the issue of the gradual easing of the lockdown. I wonder, in all of this, certainly government is getting commendations from some quarters and also getting criticism from other quarters. But what concerns do you have from the lockdown generally?
My concern is that it's ironic that when we had less than 100 cases, we enforced strict restrictions and lockdown. Now that we're over 20,000, we're easing it. And we're not being scientific about the way we're going about it. Of course, the reason we're where we are today is because of the impunity at all levels by leaders who should know better. When I say leaders, I'm talking, it's not just about politicians, responsible people who ought to show us the right thing to do. They say one thing on the one hand and do another thing, and so that's why people cannot take, people are not taking their cues, or they're taking the wrong cues from them. I think we need to be scientific in the way we go about this. And, if you notice what is being done in other jurisdictions, you look at the curve, you ease when there's a flattening of the curve. Okay, not when there is a spiraling of the curve. Of course, there's a delicate balance here between living and livelihood, which is the dilemma that government is confronted or faced with right now. But it is only the living, for instance, that can enjoy life. And we're toying with our greatest resource, our human capital. We need to do what is necessary at this time to protect lives of our people. And that means that if we're putting in place palliative, they must not just be seen to be put, but they must be seen to be working. Because the pressure right now is because people obviously are not feeling the impact of the palliatives. And so people just feel that, look, I have to go out there, I have to survive. But government must navigate the balance between living and livelihood. It's a very delicate one. It can be political, but health issues are not things to be toyed with. A whole country can be wiped out with this virus. This is more like biological warfare. The enemy line is the enemy is what we don't. We know the enemy, but we do not yet have an answer or an antidote to this enemy, other than the simple things which we ought to do: social distances, which we are distancing, or physical distancing, which we are not observing. Washing of hands, the communication is very poor, and all of that.
Okay, if we see from the perspective of government, where WHO is even saying that governments across the world should be more proactive in the approach to COVID-19, the developed world, who are sometimes portrayed as knowing better when it comes to applying scientific method to things, at this point are not doing differently. They're not faring better necessarily than African countries that are seen not to have it all. What more can governments like Nigeria and the others in sub-Saharan Africa, what else can they do at this point?
It's easy to explain why the surge is the way it is in America compared to, I wouldn't say the rest of Europe, because the rest of Europe have, as we say in pidgin English, they have borrowed themselves some sense. Okay. Now, in America, for instance, it is a so-called um, freedom, let me just say freedom, which sometimes borders on indiscipline that has helped in spiraling it. I mean, we've seen videos of people going to shops, they're told to put on masks and they say they're going to sue and all of that. China was able to contain because it's a disciplined society, a large part of Asia as well, because there's discipline. Okay, where you do not have discipline and proper enforcement, and where the leadership is not. Look at America. Look at the leadership in America. Trump, you've never seen Trump with a face mask. Where the leadership is not leading by example, you will see a spiraling of cases. Everything follows leadership. Okay, in China, for instance, where the case was really terrible, there is strict enforcement, and the leadership, everything from the leadership down, you will see that there is example, but not so here, and that's why. And so, and many African countries as well, check wherever there's discipline. If there's no laxity and there's discipline, you will see, a flattening of the curve. But where there is indiscipline and bad example by leadership, you will see a spiraling of the case, as we are experiencing in Nigeria and a few other, and the U.S., for instance.
All right. So this is more about indiscipline from the people. Now, if we have to, the other issue is the communication or the language or what is being told the people. A lot of people are saying that the communication method has not really paid off. What more can be done in that regard?
The greatest communication method is example. But yes, I want to give an example. We say that about 60% of the cases are from 18 out of 774 local government areas in Nigeria. Why are we not aware of those 18 local government areas? I live in Lagos State, for instance. I don't know where those 18 local government areas are. I don't know the numbers. Okay? It is important. That's part of the communication. When you know, then you know, because if you know that it's closer home, then you tend to be more careful. But if you do not know that it is close to you, then you tend to think that these are just numbers and statistics, that it is far away. It's like when you know somebody has affected, it has hit, and you know that your neighbor has been hit, obviously you will sit up. So we need to know the numbers, and we need to know where they're coming from. And the issue of restricting the numbers, I mean, those 18 local government areas, it's not just about locking down in those local government areas, but it's also about contact tracing within those local government areas so that you can quickly pull those people out and send them into isolation.
All right.
It's very, very important. And this one about movement across boundaries right now, removing the movement, I don't know if it's properly advised.
Okay.
I know that we need to move food, for instance. Essential things that are essential are critical.
All right. We have to leave it here now. Yeah. Thank you so much, Victor Okai, for your time and your insight into all of this. We really appreciate you this morning.